Recording. So today we're going to talk about digital maps and storytelling. I am getting some feedback from somebody. I don't know, maybe we can mute. Yeah,
I think that's me, sorry.
That's okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Oops, let me put this in present.
Oh, wait, I think I just put the wrong link in because someone else asked me for a link.
Okay. All right, so meet, here we go. Digital maps and storytelling. I'm gonna go ahead and now share my screen, present now. Can I do a window? We are getting started. Okay, that didn't go to it. Do you guys see my slideshow?
Yeah.
You do? Okay, good. Perfect. All right, here we go. Off and running. Digital maps and storytelling. So recently, this past school year, I've been taking a number of courses through National Geographic, and one that stood out to me as really important and timely, particularly in middle and high school, is using maps in classrooms. So as part of a challenge to myself, whenever I was co-teaching or writing curriculum with teams, I really made it a point to include a map a day of some sort, whether it was tech club or even walking by the big London map in the hallway that parents and kids are always looking at. And I'm always looking at because I find something new on there all the time. It's really, really neat. So more and more research shows that we soak in what's in our environment. So having maps up is great, but having kids interact and teachers interact with maps really brings it to a whole new level. Our lives are more and more dependent on maps. I don't have a good sense of direction and travel a lot, and so I'm constantly using GPS and always have to pay for packages abroad, and so that I can, find running routes. And it's just a daily part of our lives, and our kids and students are growing up that way. But really important, a new aha for me was spatial thinking. And many social studies and science experts are saying that spatial thinking should be a best practice, should be an integral part of our curriculum, that spatial thinking is important and spatial literacy is as important as word and communication literacy, mathematics literacy. So spatial thinking, which goes way beyond just simple geography, is really important. And we can bring spatial thinking into almost any other core exploratory area in schools. So how we can do that is by looking at maps, using digital maps, paper maps, but looking more at the story maps are telling us. So this would be patterns and relationships. We can look at things like human migration. There's beautiful maps that show kids the world in a whole new way. It also can show us trends over time. So an example I'll use a few times because it was really a cool unit was, it was an immigration, it was the ancient civilizations. And we were looking at modern day problems in ancient civilizations. And this particular study happened to be in Egypt. So we were looking at Cairo is moving its whole capital from where it's always been historically to a whole new place out in the desert due to overpopulation and their deadly roads. They have a ton of infrastructure problems. So they're moving their capital. They're taking their ancient monuments and buildings and using cranes and moving them. And you can see on Google Earth how they're being moved piece by piece. So we use historic timelines there to see what it looked like back then and looked like now. So it told a whole different story. One other great way we used maps was during a Skype with a journalist on Egypt and Cairo. He was based in Cairo. And explaining all this. So we pulled up another projector, placed it next to the journalist's face, and pulled up Google Earth. And whatever he was talking about, we dove in, we flew in 3D model, and the kids got to feel like they were there. And they can see, they're building here because it's brown and there's space and it's not trees and they don't want to ruin the environment, or it's this close to a river, so they need that water source. So they learned the content. This was 6th grade at a whole new level. It's a really cool way to include spatial literacy and thinking. Storytelling with human movement. I mentioned interacting with the world in a whole new way, but also really powerful is for students to storytell with maps. So an example is our communications classes. We're studying immigration along with 7th grade social studies. And they were reading novels about different, thank you, flowers. They were showing, they were reading novels. So students were able to create the paths and maps of the characters of the stories they were reading about. So it really brought calm to life in a whole new way too. And it was so connected to social studies. So it gave students a real complete picture. So a couple different ways to use maps. We're going to show you today a bunch of different ones, and you can pick and choose and start with the low-hanging fruit, whatever feels easiest and most fun to you. But one way to just get kids used to reading maps in a way that would engage them is through storytelling and the Out of Eden Walk. I don't know if you may have heard of the Out of Eden Walk. We've been doing it across the district for many, many years. A real brief history, and there's tons of information out there. This Out of Eden Walk video is a great place to start. It's 4 minutes long. It's great to use with kids. There's a journalist named Paul Salopek. He's from Chicago, the Chicago Tribune originally, but is now this global journalist and a National Geographic hero. He's on the cover of National Geographic all the time, constantly contributing to NPR and to schools as well. He's walking the original path of human migration from Ethiopia, where the first human remains were found, all the way through Asia, down through the Americas, to the southern tip of South America. So this was supposed to happen in 7 years. It's now going on 10. He's currently holed up in Myanmar because he wants to ethically, do what other people are doing. And he is walking across the world almost completely alone. He occasionally finds walking partners in the countries he's visiting, and he slows down. He's practicing slow journalism, getting kids, writing curriculum to get kids to slow down, to notice the people in their lives, to put the technology away, to be mindful, to practice mindfulness, to understand the stories and the cultures of the places he's in. So it really works well with our communications classes and writing, also social studies and geography. But you can go to the Out of Eden Walk and you can look at all the places he's been. Did I link this here or here? Oops, I must have linked it here. Hopefully you can still see this. You can go and see all the milestones. So every 100 miles, he stops and takes a milestone. It's mapped. So here are the stories here in Asia, and you can zoom in to get more of a feel of the environment he's in. But then hear the stories of the people he's met. What sounds did he hear? He takes audio recording, beautiful pictures and visuals. It's partnered with National Geographic and a couple other organizations. So it's a really cool, very rich, deep project. There's tons of curriculum, but it's a great way to start using maps to help kids understand their place in the world and in their communities. All right, back to the slideshow. A piece of the Out of Eden Walk that we have here in Chicago is called the Chicago Home Stories. And in my spare time, I work with this organization because I started it in schools and now have become a big fan of it because we're walking all 77 neighborhoods in Chicago. Not right now, we're doing it virtually, of course. But kids can still do this digitally. And we've had many, many London kids and a handful at least of Cooper kids so far contribute to this map, along with a number of teachers. So this fits really well in with the immigration unit in 7th grade, with lots of comm stories focusing on human movement, or just simply writing. It gives the kids a worldwide audience. It's, again, through National Geographic partnered, but it's here in Chicago through the McCormick Foundation. And what kids can do is you can have them go to this Discover Home Stories. Oops. I'm going to go to Chicago Home Stories. And it gives them a little background. We're also creating an introductory video that should be out next week. And it just talks about who Paul is, talks about the history and the importance of Chicago as a diverse place that we're looking at breaking down the borders between different segregated neighborhoods. But we're also having kids and young people and really any people in Chicago of a variety of backgrounds contribute to a narrative through maps that is telling the story of a more inclusive Chicago than a violent narrative or a segregated place. We know it's so much more than that. So kids can help change that narrative in an authentic way with their writing, and it's really easy. Some London teachers created a number of templates I can share with you guys too, as well as some videos that show kids how to do it. I need to get back to oops, let's go back to, so once they know what it's about and they have an original picture of a place that feels like home to them, that's the question it asks is, what feels like home to you? And you can see here in downtown Chicago, we have 277 stories. This is our Wheeling kids, Wheeling, Buffalo Grove, Arlington Heights area. We've got 60. Sometimes our kids pick Chicago areas too, because many of them have moved from the city to the burbs. We've got some Southern Chicago here. We've also got places all over the world. If you scroll out, you'll see these white dots, but the focus is Chicago. You can see here what it looks like. So the place that felt like home, this was one of our 8th graders last year. And he talked about McDonald's being his place that felt most like home. So typically we'd have a photo of McDonald's, but we weren't able to get one in time last year. But his story is actually really beautiful and deep. He talked about McDonald's being home because he met his best friend Vanessa there, and she's the one who feels like home. So they would meet there, to hang out, and so and be together. And they met in the playground playing hide and seek when he was young, and they've kept that relationship and that place special to the two of them. So it also asks, who are you? Where are you from? And where are you going? And it's more, we try and get the kids to go a little bit deep in discovering themselves and sharing that. So he says he has 2 siblings. He plays soccer from Mexico. They moved to Chicago to have a better life. If you click on it, you can get the whole story. He wants to be a police officer to help keep his community safe. So that's Caesar. And the stories are just great. So they can go in and look at different areas. You guys can go in and create your home story. They can do, art. They can draw a place if they don't have a picture or a way to get there and post that. They don't have to post their photo. We want to keep to their publication requirements of no student last names. So we usually put like Jorge London or whatever. So that's Chicago Home Stories. Do you guys have any questions on Out of Eden Walk or the Chicago Home Stories? It's a small group, so just jump in if you do. I'll go back. All right. Another way to use maps is just through visual. So sometimes we know kids aren't apt to read a whole 5-page article, but sometimes and very often they can find, or we can find and give them these gorgeous maps that are out there, and there's tons of them. I like the National Geographic ones. This is one of those. Sorry about that. Hold on. Living in the city. Good times. So this is a data visualization map, and it talks about drowning in plastic and the plastic pollution problem that is global. So if kids were to, blow this up a little bit and read these little blurbs, they would read a ton about how plastic gets from their homes through sewers to the rivers and then to different areas in the world. And they can at a glance see where it's areas of the world where it's most problematic. So a skill that we want to teach is learning how to read maps as well to understand information, so that they may also later be able to create that information. And we know our kids are so visual, so it's a really good opportunity to teach in a different way that would work for many of their learning styles.
Tracy, quick question.
Yeah.
Are you going to share the slideshow with us?
Yes, we certainly will.
Okay, thank you.
And Katrina, reach out literally anytime. I love this topic, so I'm happy.
It's cool, and I'm looking at this map, and I'm looking at my single-use plastic daughter over here who wants to not use it anymore. I think she'd like the map. It just, not only just that, but it is. Makes me think. So, but
if you're super interested, there is a Nat Geo free course for teachers. I'm just finishing now. It's called Plastic Pollution and Data Collection. So it teaches you about apps. It'd be really cool in a global awareness class too.
Right.
So
okay. Thank you.
Lots of resources out there. Almost too many sometimes.
Okay. Thank you.
So then we'll move into Nat Geo maps and resources, and there's a ton of them. Oops, I keep doing that. Let me click here. I'm going to show you the list first, and then we'll go on. The first is Map Maker Interactive, and I'll go back to that because we'll dive into that. I'll just talk about these, and you can hit the links up later. One cool thing that you can print out, it's free, but it's also kind of a pain, but maybe you have some student helpers that would like to help you with this. You can print out a map that would be the size of maybe my kitchen big. So maybe 30 kids could stand on it at a time. But why this is good, it's really cool for little ones, but also great for middle school kids because you can then hang it across the wall, but they can also move their bodies from place to place. So it becomes more of a like bodily kinesthetic kind of thing, but they can also add layers through different colors, and that it'd be so large. It comes out in paper size, so you have to tape them all together. But it's an option. I started it, and to be honest, I kind of gave up because I just didn't have time. And what I really love are these one-page maps, and they have tabletop maps. So we use tabletop maps often at London. They have, because you can fit like 6 kids around a tabletop map. So I picture 6 desks is what it covers. And they can start with one map, their own individual map each. And they have these for places across the world, really detailed. You can, take names off, put rivers in. You can manipulate these, and these are printouts. So great for kids who need paper right now, if we're adding to those at all. And they can then draw on them. So a kid could be doing, one piece of the population or migration movement, and then they can each bring their single maps to the tabletop map, and they can add different elements of a map to tell a complete story. So you can customize these maps, download, print, or share them electronically. So those are really cool. Another thing we can do is use Cami with these digitally to mark them up, to have kids annotate them, to draw on them. I haven't done that yet, but it's just an idea that might work. So those are the Map Maker kits. Let's go quickly to the Map Maker Interactive. Doesn't recognize me. And this is pretty neat. We had a teacher on from Cooper that was using this a lot in global ed, so global awareness. And he used these layers. So I'll talk about those layers in a minute. But first, what you can do is scroll in and out. You can add point-to-point information, and you can do this for your kids, or your kids can do this. And we'll talk about saving in a minute because Erica's done some great research on that for us. They have different shapes. You can put pins or markers in different places. You can find distance between places. And that helps with that spatial thinking too. You can add text boxes for information, flag places, and then latitude and longitude if that's helpful. It's also good just for visual information to see, and this even doesn't look, okay, never mind. But they can scroll all around. It's pretty detailed. So then where you can do even more things, up here is the normal things: bookmarking, printing, sharing. You can print them out once you've marked it up how you want to. You can add these layers. So this is what Kevin O'Donnell is doing a lot of, and it's really impressive what he's done with it. But you can add, let's look at African-American population. I know that's part of one of our social studies units. We looked at big cats last time. So, okay. So I think once you just click done, and you can add more than one layer. Did it add it? Now let's do ultimate. I'll try alternate energy use. Or are those on there already? I'm going to add it. Okay. I think it's. Okay. So there we go. You can see that it's added because you have your transparency here where you can make it darker or lighter. What is this? Alternate energy. So you can see the pieces that have it by the green. So it's noted in the green. These are the spaces that are using alternate energy sources. Let me try and add another layer. We'll look at big cats too. I don't know why you would need to compare. Well, I can think of reasons. So might be cool to look at where big cats live. Are they near? Are they far from alternate energy uses? Does that change their ecosystems? So you can see how we're building a story already with layers and what are those connections. So it's some really high level thinking. The pink is where the big cats are. So the layers are really cool. Then you can change your base maps. So if you just want an overview like that, if you want to look at the oceans, the terrain, streets, I won't do all of them, but you get the idea. Satellites, really cool. Topography. And then once kids go to save their map, there's a data piece in here. So here, sorry, I should have showed you this in the beginning, would be the color notations of the big cats and alternate energy use. So they show you that's what that means. So kids can't save without putting in their School District 21 email account, which I think, and Erica and Jody jump in here, if they put it in, they just can't receive emails. Like they can maybe then save the map, but they wouldn't be able to receive emails back from Nat Geo.
The map will be gone because what it does is it saves it as a link and then it emails you the link. So if a student hits save, it's not going to go anywhere. So there's two things you could do. Depending on how many maps you have going at a time, they could put your email address in and then you would get a whole load of links. I know Kevin didn't think that was too manageable. So what he did is he had the kids he left some time at the end of the class period and they had to make just a screencast. Here's my map. Here's, the demographic, just talking through the layers they put in and maybe a little bit about why this is important. But I would say if you do have a group that really hasn't finished or they really want to keep going, then you can put your email address in the save box and then you'll get the link and then you could forward the link to the kid.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
A little complex, but I think it can work. But lots of good resources there. Any questions on the Nat Geo resources? Okay, we'll move on to my maps. So again, we started this out with 7th grade economics this time. Whoops. And I guess I can't really scroll in. Switch computers. Okay, so this is what I did. I know London folks found out about this McDonald's project from Cooper or Holmes. I can't remember. I think maybe everybody's doing it. And so what we did was we wanted to bring in maps. So I took McDonald's data of the number of McDonald's that exists in each state in the United States, and I color coded them. So if you click on it, you'll be able to see the text box. I just added a marker and a text box, and then I added the number of McDonald's from the most recent information we had. What a kid came up with that we'd like to do differently next time is to do the percentage by population. So how does that look? But we color coded it. Red is just a few, and then orange is a little bit more. Yellow is a significant number in the state. And then California, I think, is the only green one that was a ton, over 1,000. So we just made up this key. We marked the map. And then the kids, when they were researching McDonald's around the world, they went in and added the same information on their own. It was just us kind of testing it out to see, and the kids loved it. So this was just a little experiment that the kids use, and they were able to write up a summary of why they thought it was what it was. And then next year we were going to have them add why does Brazil have how is their McDonald's different? They can add all kinds of information in the text box, images. So we weren't getting fancy yet, but it was a great way to start. So that's my maps. It's similar to the Nat Geo, except it doesn't have the pre-built layers on topics. But this is really easy to manipulate. This is through Google, so it's aligned with our Google apps. Let me get out of this one. Well, what you do is drop a pin. You can add your marker. You can do the lines from place to place. You can do directions. You can do scale and distance. And so it's kind of basic, but it does cool stuff, and it's really easy for kids to use. So they really liked it. The teacher ran with it really, really great. So that's my maps. Okay. So those are kind of like flatter maps. I love Google Earth because I love all things 3D. You can see here they've got, anything from the mountains to cities. Google Earth was just majorly revamped. And in fact, they're thinking it's going to take over some of their other products like My Maps eventually. So let's dive in and look at Google Maps and Voyager. The kids love this too. The day it came out, we had our tech club kids teach me how to use this, which was really fun. So once you go to launch it, it will When you go in the first time, it will give you 5 things, like a quick tutorial on 5 things you can do with Google Earth. So it's worth watching. But I'll run you through a couple of the basics today to get started. And kids can do this. We can send them the link. They can do research this way. I also use it often for demonstration. So let's see. These things in the hamburger button there are all similar. I'm going to skip Voyager for right now. You can search for a place just like you used to be able to do. Go to Antarctica. And it gives you this information card while it flies you there. So I just kind of took my hand off the keyboard. It's going to bring me there. And then it tells me a little bit of information to it. I can add this information to a project if I'm doing a research project. And then I can go there once I'm ready. It'll fly me back in. And Antarctica maybe isn't the best example. It's just one that we used initially because you can see there's not a lot of buildings or streets or people. It's mostly interesting terrain, but you can see already this looks different because of the ice melting. And you can go below the clouds there. I can see less ice. We'll be getting more too, but you can get in. We drilled into some research stations, but you can see the ice flows and you can talk about different kinds of landscapes. We did see some penguins at one point down there. So very interesting. You can even see the ice underneath the ocean there. So it's good. You can also go to Street View, and we'll do that in a minute, but I won't do that in Antarctica because it's not as interesting. But need to fly to places that are unfamiliar and see where they are in relation and just how large this continent is. Okay, so the next thing is I'm feeling lucky. What this does is it gives you a place in the world that you might not be familiar with. This one I haven't heard of either. This looks like a suburb in the city of Algiers, in Algeria. So it gives you, again, that information card. You can fly down. You can scroll in. You can do compare contrast. So a lot, I'm feeling lucky is pretty neat because you can learn a lot about the world with that. Street View, oh, that's a new project. I won't do that today. But once you do create a project, you can customize the look and feel of the map. And then this, like my maps, or the same on most maps, is the distance between spaces, and you can change what that looks like. And then Street View, you can see it's mountainous. There's some kind of body of water. So it's really updated. It's really cool. It's got a lot to offer in there. So the last thing on here, I think, is, let me go over here first. So some things you can do over here in the right-hand corner is scroll in and out. You can go back to a 2D map. You can go to Street View. I can move my little guy where I want to go. Let's check out whatever this is. So it's going to move to more of a Street View. And then we have this directional compass here. I don't actually remember what this does. Hoping it will show me, but it seems to be stuck. Oh, fly to your location. So maybe that's if you're putting in a different. Okay, so you can also click on here, and then it will show you where it's going. Okay, that makes sense for a compass. All right, so that's Google Earth. I'm going to go to Voyager, which I love. And this is kind of like a tour. So it's like a pre-built, oh, this looks cool. And they're constantly updating this based on different projects. So let's go to, there was a really neat India one I saw that I was playing with the other day. Well, I guess they changed it already. So you can search for different, let's do culture maybe. All right, so let's do, well, holidays around the world might be good. So this one's already built, and it will take you to different places. It will give you information about them, and it will bring you right into the place, and you can explore, but it will also tell a pre-built story from place to place. So I know there was one at like Rivers of India on pollution that was really cool. It's kind of like a living textbook that kids can explore. So once they read the information, you can fly. Oh, you can click here to the next one, and it will bring you to the next spot. And so this one's just sharing visually different holidays from around the world in different spaces, but you can see where one is in relation to each other, which is really neat. So they've got all kinds of topics and stories on here for that. All right, any questions on, those are just the basics, but any questions on Google Earth or Voyager?
Can you
No.
show me where it was stated, I'm feeling lucky again?
Yeah.
I missed that.
Yes, let me go back. Am I still in my Google Earth?
Thanks,
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, be a good warm up for social studies maybe, or. So it's this dice, like you're rolling the dice over here on the left-hand side.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So actually, I've never heard of the places they've gone so far. But this place looks pretty cool. Look at this steel tower with sweeping city views.
That's pretty
And then they
cool.
can click on it and they can get a picture of it, and then they can add this to a project if they are. But they can also go to Wikipedia from here if they want to know even more information.
That's neat.
Yeah. All right. Good question. Okay. Erica's going to jump in with Tour Builder.
Okay, so you want me to present so then I can go to my tabs?
Sure.
So I'll start talking about Tour Builder. The one thing with e-learning and Tour Builder, it might be a little more of an advantage because I don't think it takes as much bandwidth as Google Earth. And what Tour Builder does is it lets them create tours. You can add a narrative. The other thing that it does do also is it lets you put in historical time, and that's kind of what this is showing you right here. So some teachers are starting to use this for more like looking at locations in wars, or maybe if you're reading a novel that's very location specific, you would do that, and then you can look at the change of the place over time. So if you wanted to look at a Lexington in the 1700s, that's going to look a lot different than Lexington does today. So that's kind of an interesting thing, I think, with Tour Builder, that it can allow them to present a story. And what some people are doing, so Tracy, you're still presenting.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
There you
go. Yeah, let me hit this, and I'll show you some tabs that I called up. I think it's interesting that they might be folding this into Google Earth, but I think the advantage is the simplicity of Tour Builder. So I'll just kind of show you, when you go to this screen, it's basically view a tour, create a tour. You can see some featured tours down below, but I just feel like, students can do this fairly easily, I think, without you giving them a whole lot, maybe a little screencast, and they can get going. So if you wanted them to create a tour, they would simply just hit the tour. Let's say if they were doing Buffalo Grove. I did one already, so let's do two. Interface is rather simplistic. It has the map. It puts your entries into chapters. So you'd probably start with a photo that you would want of maybe whatever you're looking at. Let's say I was giving some general information about Buffalo Grove, and I would just down here write my information. And then if I add a location, let's say I wanted to put Cooper Middle School. Make sure I choose the right one. And then I can add this to my tour. And if I wanted, I can do the same thing. I could drag the Pegman if I wanted to see more of a street view. If I wanted to keep it an aerial view, I just hit add to the tour. And then I might have some of my own photos to add. I might want to put the date in that I'm interested in looking at, and then put some information about what's so great about Cooper. So now I'll kind of show you one that's done. This one, she's telling her story about her service and working in the Air Force Base and the training she did. So you kind of see she's telling, in the beginning, she's telling you a little story about herself. And I think as we're asking, narratives is a big part of the writing unit study. And this is just showing you how a narrative could be very, easy to use little chunks. I think this is what this does in the best way, that it, gives the introduction. Then she talks about Marshall, Wisconsin, where she's seeing her childhood. Then you can click the chapter, and maybe at Madison, I'm guessing she went to school or she went to training. So it's just like, different things. I just think this makes it very manageable, that students just don't feel as overwhelmed with the writing process if they were just using kind of a layout like this, and then also getting to see on the side the map and, places and, things that are interesting. So, an Air Force base. So just different things that they could think of. Then she goes on to Iraq. So really almost everything on this tour builder, people have interesting stories, and it's just kind of seeing their story and maybe having the kids think about how their own voice could be different and how their story would look different from someone else's if you were doing this tour builder. Another tour builder that I found that I kind of mentioned, this was the War for Independence. So this was a history teacher, and he kind of did this as like a shell that then the students had to fill in. So he was talking about, the War for Independence, important places and events. And so he just made a general card for the place and made a copy for the students. And he also put the time period in here. Now this is filled in, but I know for this assignment, this wasn't. So then the students would have to start filling in with facts. So it's just helping them make a little more connection about, I think sometimes when we teach about, World War II and the trenches and this and that, it's hard to realize that, what type of terrain some of these, soldiers were facing and what conditions they had. So I just thought Tour Builder is kind of a cool way of putting that all, kind of connecting the dots for kids when we're asking them to look at a historical event, or even, some of these novels that really use historical fiction, or they use a lot of geography, just like kind of putting it all together. So are there any questions for me about Tour Builder?
I have a question. If they wanted to do something like, we're trying to, as an 8th grade today, figure out what the last couple of days looks like, could they do a tour of their house and where they've been doing e-learning and what that looks like? Or is that violating privacy rules because it's pictures of their home?
Can I say something about that real
Sure.
quick? Well, 2 things. One is, yes, they could upload pictures onto their, it would all come down to their privacy, what their privacy was. Because we've had kids, we've done things from home. It's a little bit tricky. But because that could be happening during regular. But the other thing I was going to say is there's also a tour creator. But I think that the answer is the same for both. I don't know. What do you 2 think? That might be a question for Alicia or for Kara, but I'm afraid to ask it because.
I think I'd run it by somebody, but if it was not something that would give away their address or something that the student was uncomfortable with sharing, I think it'd be okay if they were comfortable with it, but I would definitely run it by somebody if they were to do it kind of discreetly without giving away personal information.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little hesitant to just take pictures of anything, but I wanted to ask, so maybe I could propose it as an option, but that's okay. I will pass.
On the home stories, kids have posted pictures of their bedrooms or their desk. If that was the place that felt like home, they would take and post a picture publicly of a space in their home that they were comfortable with sharing, and that's always been fine.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will stop presenting.
Okay. Do the window. Okay, there we go. We're just about done. Okay. Oh, yep. The last one is just something to think about that I thought was really cool. It's the idea of freeing the map. maps are also, oftentimes very rigid and structured and accurate and, precise. And so there's people out there that are doing artistic, impressionistic maps that I thought were just beautiful. And there would be a great place for this in either art classes or expos or even in our classes. But could kids design maps based on either what's important to them or their vision of a place or space? This is an artistic impression of the Mississippi River that I think is really cool and beautiful. We had kids when we were learning about Antarctica. Some of them blew up the krill and made them huge because they're the most important part of the food chain in that region. So, or if they thought penguins were the best, they would draw, huge penguins and small sea lions and whatever. So there's a place for maps to be playful and fun and artistic so that kids can summarize or tell a story. And if that's done intentionally, then it's a really cool way to maybe even do like an informal assessment or an assessment of some kind based on learning, based on their artistic view of it. So maps can be used in many different ways in many different places, but they always seem to be meaningful and exciting for kids if we get beyond the kind of memorizing of the capitals and things like that. So so that's it. Do you guys have any questions about digital maps and storytelling overall?
No, thanks for sharing.
No.
Sure.
No.
I'm going to put the link to the slideshow in right now so you have it. This doesn't want me to present. Let's see. There we go. There's that. I think I changed the permissions. If not, I'll change them right now. But yeah, if you guys have any questions going forward, let us know. I need Jody, Eric, or I. And also, if you do something super cool, let us know too, because it's always fun to learn about that, but also see how we can coach teachers to do things differently too, and share your great ideas with credit, of course. So thank you for coming today.
Oh, there it goes. Okay. Well, thanks for everything, you guys. That was awesome. Thank you.
Good. Glad you were here. All right. Talk to you soon. We can probably stop recording.
I have a question.
I think
First of all,
we're
that was
still
great.
recording.